Greetings, everyone. Welcome. Merry Christmas Eve to those of you celebrating tonight and then tomorrow. Merry Christmas to those celebrating. I'm very, very happy to see you all here back in the studio, and great to have beautiful Sarah with us, of course, as always, and on the right side of the screen, I might add this time around. So people commented about that last time. So tell me first, before we begin, how are you? How are you doing? How's everything going?
Good. I'm doing well. I mean, things aren't great. Personally, they're great, but things are not great in the United States. I'm sure we're going to talk about it today.
We will.
We,
We
we
will
have over
indeed.
15,000 menorahs and very little nativity scenes. Things are looking bleak out here.
Judeo Christianity, Sarah. Judeo Christianity. Please get it right.
But I am a Christmas freak. It will not tamper my Christmas spirit. So
That's right. And it shouldn't. So we have a very, very special guest, someone that I truly admire, somebody I had the chance to be in Moscow with just about a month or so ago at RT's 20th anniversary. And I'd like to bring on Larry Johnson, veteran of the CIA and the State Department's Office of Counterterrorism. And I have to say, a well-renowned expert in all respects. Welcome to our program. Great to see you.
Hey, Chris, thanks. Yeah, I broke out the Santa shirt. I had to see that. That's
I
Santa
love
Claus.
I love it. You're always so festive. I love it.
My
Very
latest triumph was I doing the show with Nima, who's Iranian that broadcasts from Brazil, and we had Professor Morandi on the other day. I gave
fantastic.
Morandi while in Moscow for the RT anniversary. I gave Morandi a Hawaiian shirt, and he wore it. He was rocking it. He was rocking it. He stole the show.
I love it. I love it. We had a great time. We had a great time together, and it's so good and I look forward to seeing you again soon, hopefully here.
Yes.
I know you've been doing a lot of great work. You've been doing great things. Also some breakthrough reporting I've seen recently. We can talk about that later on in the show.
Sure.
But first, I want to get to the elephant in the room, the big kahuna. What is everybody's talking about still? Russia's momentum in Ukraine, what's going on with the peace deal, how things are happening. So to break it down for our viewers, of course, recent developments show Russia is maintaining a very strong offensive, and the pressure is increasing on the Ukrainian regime, with Russian forces capturing significant territory. According to some statistics, 138 square miles in the week leading up to December 22nd of this year, and 215 square miles in the prior period. President Putin has publicly boasted about this momentum during his December 19th press conference, which I'm sure you saw. It was very well publicized. It was a phenomenal, almost 5-hour event. And President Putin ruled out any compromises and reaffirmed the aims of the special military operation, which are, of course, addressing the root causes. While Russian cross-border attacks into northern Ukrainian territory signal an expanding front, a notable escalation includes the car bomb recently that killed a Russian general in Moscow just 2 days ago. So with investigations probing potential Ukrainian links, there's a lot of questions still unanswered about what's going on. So Ukraine faces challenges retaining ground, number one. And of course, even though talks in Miami between the U.S. and Russian reps hint at possible diplomatic paths amid ongoing strikes on civilian targets, we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening. So I want to talk to you. Let's hit it. Straight away. I just got back from the Donbass. I was in Donetsk.
Oh, okay.
Went through Kherson territory and then into Crimea. So I was there for 10 days. I saw it all. We had a great chance to meet with the leader in Donetsk, Denis Pushilin, also with the leader in Crimea. So I want to ask you, first and foremost, what do you make of this 28, now 20-point peace plan? How do you see things? How do you see the chips on the table right now in terms of any sort of peace negotiation that could settle this thing according to what the U.S. wants and what others want?
There will be no settlement through negotiations. There's no peace deal, period. Ain't going to happen. For it to happen, let's just assume that Donald Trump, there are 3 key points that Putin is not going to compromise on. He's not going to make concessions. Number one, the territories that are former oblasts of Ukraine that are now part of the Russian Federation, they're now counted among the 89 federal sites within Russia. Crimea, Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, Kherson. They ain't going back. There's no territorial concession. Not going to happen. Number two, the peace proposal that the Ukrainians trotted out now is basically what the Europeans came up with, that Ukraine gets to have an 800,000 man army. Nope. In March, April of 2022, when they had a tentative agreement between Russia and Ukraine, they had agreed that 85,000. Now, one of the primary objectives for Russia from the outset was to demilitarize and denazify. Well, at the start of the war, Ukraine had 300,000 troops in its army. They had 900,000 in reserve. So we're now to believe that the Russians are going to go, oh, okay, yeah, we'll let you have 800,000, almost 1 million. Ain't going to happen.
Mhm.
The third, security guarantees with the deployment of NATO forces into Ukraine. The Russians have a 4-letter word for that. Niet. But, you know, the way Americans spell it, it comes out 4 letters. So, but let's assume that that Putin will make a deal based on just those 3 principles alone. You know, he may forego elections, whatever. That will never have the approval of the political class in the United States. So if I'm Russia, the only way I will reach any agreement with the Americans or the Europeans is there's got to be a signed treaty, a treaty that's ratified by their legislature, the parliament, or in the case of the United States, the U.S. Senate. Now, there's no way in hell that 66 U.S. senators are going to line up to vote for such a treaty. It ain't going to happen. So that's why I say this. The talking, it's good that the United States and Russia are in communication. They're trying to get back to the kind of a relationship that existed in the Cold War during the 70s, where even though the Soviet Union was supplying pilots to the Vietnamese that were killing Americans, and even though we were fighting each other through proxies around the world, we still got together and talked. We still had trade relations. We negotiated nuclear arms control agreements. So that's what I think Russia would like to achieve. But as far as ending this war through diplomatic means, ain't going to happen. Russia has no alternative but to end it militarily. And that is what the West fails to understand. And I don't care how much they try to shame Putin, how much they try to insult Putin. Putin understands that. And in fact, that was what was so important about his 4.5-hour marathon end of the year press conference last Friday. He reiterated the same points he had presented to the foreign ministry back in 14th of June of 2024. Hasn't budged an inch. And the West foolishly believes that they can, if we just put enough economic pressure on Putin, he'll cave. Hey, don't hold your breath. You'll pass out.
I think you're absolutely right on that. Now, let me ask you. So I agree with you on this point. I don't think we're going to see a negotiated settlement. I think we're going to see a military settlement and ultimately a military victory for the Russian Federation.
Right.
Question: what does that victory in your mind look like? Because a lot of people with a lot of opinions. What about Odessa? What about connecting with Prednistrovy? There's a whole bunch of lingering issues that could come out of this if it ends in one way or another. So I want to ask you, what does that look like? Where are we headed militarily in terms of territory?
Russia will continue to move to the east. They will eventually, I believe, retake Kiev or Kyiv. They'll take Nikolaev. They'll take Odessa. They'll also take Poltava, Sumy, Kharkiv. But and in those 3 former oblasts and Dnipropetrovsk. So those 4, they will have elections, just like they did in September of 2022, where they'll give the inhabitants of those areas a chance. Hey, you want to be part of the cool kids club of the Russian Federation, or you want to stay with that loser, that cokehead Zelensky? You choose. So I see the voters flocking to the polls saying, "No, we want to sit at the cool kids table." So Russia will probably expand from 89 in the Federation to 93 before this is done, or actually 94. So that's where it's headed. Now, Russia is under no time pressure. The West keeps trying to portray this like it's some football game. It's in the second half of the World Cup. They're already at the 90th minute. We don't know how many extra minutes there are to go, but boy, you better finish it up quick or else. The Russians aren't playing for time, and this is what fascinates me is the craziness of the Western military analysts, because you're citing the figures up front. One of the criticisms has been, well, Russia's only captured 1% of the territory of Ukraine. Of course, they count all the territory that's to the west of the Dnieper River that Russia's never claimed any aspiration whatsoever to take control of. That's not Novorossiya. Novorossiya is to the east, not the west. But that used to be their criticism. But as Chris, as you noted, in the last 2 weeks, the Russians have basically captured about 350 square kilometers of territory. What does that correspond to? Oh, that's the same size as Gaza. Now let's compare the two. The Zionist forces in Israel have been killing basically unarmed men, women, and children for 2+ years just to try to get control of 350 square kilometers of territory, and they still can't do it.
You're right.
They've failed. Here's Russia now in 2 weeks. They've captured as much, if not more, territory in 2 weeks than Israel has done in 2+ years. That's number one. The Israelis have, they've got a lousy army. They've got terrible leadership. And yet the West is constantly dreaming up this propaganda against Russia. And so the latest, if you haven't heard, you got some hungry Russian soldiers out there.
They're eating each other.
They are, yeah. They're eating each other. Cannibalism runs rampant in the Russian army because the logistics system is so bad. They're having to, Dmitri's looking at Vladimir with that gleam in his eye. Vladimir, you look very tasty, my friend. You got that. But so this is how it ties into Europe. Europe is like, oh my God, the Russians are so mighty and powerful. They're going to invade and conquer us. And yet they're creating this meme that they're actually so weak and hungry, they're eating each other. Now, the scenario I paint is the Russian soldiers. They're sitting there, Dmitry, Vladimir, I'm hungry too. Let's go get some French food. Sorry. I mean, it's ludicrous. No, I feel like eating German tonight. Okay, France.
Can I? I want to bring you back. Actually, I want to go in the time machine. In 2019, when I was in Venezuela reporting, Max Blumenthal was there. Everybody, all of our good friends were out there, and we heard the same things at that time, and I had to confront it head on when the American and Western media said people are digging up corpses and eating them in Venezuela. They're so hungry. Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm in Caracas in some like comuna in barrio, and people are getting eggs and bread and arroz and you name it. They got everything that they need. And I was thinking to myself, really? People buy this stuff that they're digging up corpses? Yeah. How much meat's left on the bone, right? After it's in the ground for so long. Yeah. They recycle this stuff every so often, right?
Yeah, it is. That's really about the only thing the West is good at anymore is the propaganda campaign. Now, this is so clumsy, but you remember we started the special military operation started off with the Ghost of Kiev, that famous Ukrainian pilot who was shooting down everything the Russians could put in the air. It turned out it was from a video game. Then we got Russia's running out of missiles any day now. They're running out. Just wait, you'll see. Well, that turned out to be a bust. Shovels. Hey, the rifles don't work, but by God, those Russians are pretty crazy with their shovels.
Pickle jar babushka.
Yeah, they're having to club the Ukrainians. And last was mothers, daughters, protect your washing machines and refrigerators. The military's coming for them because they need those chips for the missile. It's just
so crazy.
Yeah, and so now the reason I think they're breaking that kind of story out, they're increasing increasingly desperate to create some hope somehow that that Ukraine can still pull this out of the fire. And that's why, I love to use movie memes, and I've been using the one that applies here is that scene from the movie Dumb and Dumber with, with Jim Carrey. And I forget the name of the female actor who is, the beautiful woman that was sort of Carrie was in love with her. And he's saying, what are my chances? And she goes, not good. And he goes, can we say 1 in 100? And she goes, it's more like 1 in a million. And Kerry gets this expression on his face, and then his eyes light up, and he goes, so I still have a chance. That's the Ukrainians. That's the Ukrainians right now in the West. I still have a chance. Yeah. 1 in a million would be your very, very best odds. The fact of the matter is Ukraine is a dead country walking.
Yeah.
And right now, or up to this point, Russia has not shut down. Well, they have shut down commerce on the Dnieper River because it's blocked below Zaporizhia, the dam that got blown up. But in the past, a significant portion of exports for Ukraine came down that river. In fact, in the latest Ukrainian peace proposal, they wanted an assurance from Russia that they won't interfere with traffic on the Dnieper River. Well, and Russia up to this point has basically left the port of Odessa alone. And they've left Odessa largely alone. That's over now. They're taking down the bridges. They're going to cut off its access to Romania. They're going to cut off its ability to be resupplied. They're taking down the power systems. They're taking out the petroleum storage facilities, and they're going to make it impossible for ships to dock there. And, I think they finally say, okay, the gloves are now coming off.
Absolutely. And I want to ask you about, so I was just down there, as I mentioned, and one of the things that we spoke about was the day after in Ukraine, because I have the hunch that we're entering into a period where Ukraine, as you rightfully point out, is already a failed state, but it'll be even worse of a failed state. I mean, we're talking, there's no functional state at all at this point.
Right.
Once it's cut off from the Black Sea, let's say hypothetically, let's say in this scenario, it's cut off from the Black Sea, those oblasts that then vote for referendums and join the Russian Federation. Now you have this kind of rump state that's landlocked, number one. Number two, now you have a ultra-nationalist kind of fascistic wing that has been on the battlefield, that has been inculcated with this Banderite ideology for the past 2 decades, let's say. And they're going to go head-to-head with the liberals and with sort of the Zelensky class. Now, I have a feeling, and I want to hear your perspective on this, I have a feeling that we are only in the first phase of this special military operation. Phase 2 is going to come when the Ukrainian government itself collapses and there's a civil war. Because I have a feeling the nationals are going to go after everybody who betrays the nation, so to speak, and who signed any agreement towards peace. So Zelensky, I think, is a dead man walking, as are all of his deputies and that kind of elite. And then you have to ask, in the scenario of a civil war or mass violence in that rump state, who's going to get involved to establish stability there?
Well, so I think Russia actually has sort of a model. They've been through this before. It was the 10-year war in Chechnya.
Yep.
And in that case, you had Western financed, Western trained, Western supplied jihadis. So sort of the same kind of fanaticism. That was a religious fanaticism. What you have with the Banderite crowd is an ideological fantasy or fanaticism. You've got the added benefit, though, that countries like Hungary and even Romania will be wanting to recover parts of what was their territory that currently is under the control of Ukraine. There will be, I think, a significant outflow above and beyond what has happened of refugees some will be going to Russia, some will be going to Europe, to Poland, to Hungary, to Romania. And that, Russia's dealt with that before. The thing that Russia will then do, though, I think, following the Chechen model, is go back and start rebuilding Ukraine. I was so impressed with meeting General Abdialudinov, and then there's Kadyrov, and when you see what the Chechen people went through was a nightmare. It was horrific, and under most countries would go through that kind of experience and come out so damaged, so bitter, with anger, resentment, lingering, wanting revenge. But that didn't happen in Chechnya. In fact, Russia made it a priority to go back in and rebuild. And the cities of Grozny are now one of the most beautiful cities in Russia. And I think they built the largest mosque in the world in Chechnya. And so the Russians have figured out how to heal what the West would see as impossible of healing. And so I think they're going to bring that mentality, this attitude, to the situation in Kiev. But I fully believe Putin when he talked about denazifying. They're going to eradicate that ideology. They're not going to allow it to continue because it's inhuman, it's evil, and it caused the death. It was of over 27 million Russians 85 years ago or 80 years ago. So I some people get really say, oh, then it's going to, the civil war will break. It might, yeah. And Russia, think about what Russia was from 1999 to 2010, which is roughly the period for that Chechen civil war. Russia was not the fourth largest economy in the world measured by purchasing power parity then. It is now. Russia didn't have generations of hypersonic missiles and other military technologies, particularly with drones. Back then, they do now. Russia didn't have an army of ground forces of 1 million men, active duty, plus 5 million reservists minimum. They do now. So, and this notion that the Russian economy is, it's so bad. The people, Cy Hirsch just put out a piece of crap last week, and I love Cy. I've known him for 45 years, but boy, he's pissed at me now because I told him that his article just sucked. Because he claimed, he writes in there, and he's getting this from these clowns in the Trump administration, that the economic situation is so bad that the banks have stopped making loans to Russian citizens. It's against the law. It's prohibited. You can't make a loan to buy a house or buy a car. And I'm going, what? The fact of I've got friends that are that I can call up Stanislav Kropivnik. I can call up Joseph Rose. There are a number of Americans living in Russia that have switched their citizenship, and they're going, what are you talking about? That's ridiculous. So, but the West keeps pushing these lies out about the weakness of the Russian economy, and the Russians have made the firm decision, I think, what? We're no longer going to be dependent on the West. Our eyes, we're looking to the East. The vision of Sergei Karaganov, I think, is coming to fruition. So, that's why I don't. There will be a morning after. There will be a time of consolidating power in Ukraine. They're going to have elections, but those elections are not going to include neo-Nazis.
I agree with you. And I want to close with this last question and sort of your idea, your perspective, because one thing I keep telling our friends here in Moscow and throughout Russia is, look, a lot of them are like, oh, but we can find some agreement with Trump. Maybe we can find some solution. I said, look, you might be able to. I won't say I'm not a crystal ball reader. I don't know what's going to happen. You might, but when those elections come next year, next November, first of all, midterms, you might get a Congress that doesn't like you anymore. Yeah. That might be Democrat controlled. And then 2 years after that, you might have a general election where you have a Democrat president. And that might totally roll back the clock, because the Democrats are in no way friends of Russia. They have been a part of this, sort of Russophobia and hysteria and Russiagate for more than a decade now. So I just want to get your opinion. What would you tell the Russians when they say, "Oh yeah, we could go back to the way things are," when you know that down the road you have elections 1 year out and then basically 3 years?
No. The only agreement, if Russia makes an agreement, part of that agreement will require that the United States draw up a treaty, and that this agreement will not go into effect until the U.S. Congress ratifies that agreement. So if it's not just Trump's word, at that point you got 67 of the 100 senators saying yes, we back up this treaty with Russia. Now that doesn't mean a treaty can't be broken, but at least it's a much firmer guarantee than doing something like Minsk. Yeah, we cross our heart and hope to die. Go ahead and sign on, and then they, as they admitted, Merkel and Hollande, it was just a ruse to buy time. In fact, I don't know. Have you seen one of the latest episodes by Vovan and Lexus, where they pretend to be the chief of staff for Zelensky, and they call up this woman, Amanda Sloat. She used to be like head of the Ukraine office in the National Security Council for Biden, and Eric Green, who was a State Department body detailed over there. He ran the Russia section. And, they admit, they'd try to get the Ukrainians to sign a deal that's really vague and ambiguous so they can go about rearming, so they get ready to kick Russia's ass next time. The West is not to be trusted. I hate to say that about my country, but the West is not to be trusted.
And before we pivot, I have some super chats on the Russia topic. Russia has to take Odessa. Otherwise, Sevastopol will always be vulnerable. It's in their best interest to. I think Larry wants them to take Kiev all the way to Kiev.
No, they should. Look, Kiev is the birthplace of Russian Christianity.
Yep,
it was really the birthplace of Russia.
Yep,
it belongs in Russia. None of the, it's ridiculous that Khrushchev, being Ukrainian, he said, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna play to my homies here," but he ain't coming back. So give him. Yeah, I agree with your listener.
And then this is an interesting one. Nobody's talking about it, but if Russia can take the Carpathian Mountains, then Russia can run pipelines to Belgrade, and China can build transportation routes.
Definitely a possibility. This is where you get back to the play in the Caucasus, particularly with Armenia and Azerbaijan.
Yeah.
So Russia's partnership with Iran to build the North-South corridor, that's proceeding. But then you had Trump sign this, get this agreement with Armenia and Azerbaijan for what is it called, the Zangezur.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I'd bet a hefty sum of money that if we went back to February 1st of this year, and we put a gun to Donald Trump's head and say, on the map, show me Armenia and Azerbaijan.
Yeah.
He'd have a funeral.
He'd be a dead man. He'd go. In fact, he created a new country. He called it Azerbaijan.
Yeah. Albania, Azerbaijan.
Yeah, they're fighting. And those two countries are going, we are? Well, where is Azerbaijan? Get it out. So that informed me that was a deep state project. And if you look at the size of the U.S. Embassy in Yerevan, the number of people assigned there, I mean, Armenia is like 3 million people. They got this huge embassy that it's like in terms of personnel assigned to it, it's like in the top 10 or 15 in the world out of 189 countries. So, why is that? Gee, could it be that my old organization is conducting a variety of covert actions to target both Russia to the north, Iran to the south, and they're working to block Russia, China, and Iran if they can. So that's one of the issues that's there on the table. and that it has to be dealt with in the future. So,
Well, speaking of Russia-China influence, we'll pivot to Venezuela because I know a lot of our listeners really want to get your thoughts on this. So we're kind of going back to our own operations in Latin America, which I think most people are really familiar with. But that's why I want to ask you about Mossad operations in Latin America. Maduro has said more than once that Mossad is trying to throw him. You know, he's staunchly against Mossad. We know about Mossad ops. What can you tell us about Mossad plotting to take him out, or what other operations they kind of do down there?
Well, look, there is a long history of both Jewish and Islamic influence from Central America all the way to South America. I used to do, when we started Berg Associates in 1998, a lot of our early work was doing product counterfeiting investigation. So I got to know Cologne, Panama quite well. And if you go into Cologne, you think, oh, Cologne, it's a Latino society. It's it's the Spanish influence. But you get inside the Cologne free zone, you find that about 35 to 40% of the merchants that own businesses, they come out of a Lebanese Muslim background, and some others. Then about another 25% come out of Lebanese Jewish background. So there was this diaspora around the start of the 20th century that they came into Central America. And then the remainder is made up actually of Asians and Indians, the Sindhis, for example, the Muslims that are from West Pakistan, West India, that live along the border with Pakistan. In fact, the joke, this is where I first heard the joke. They say in India, if you're walking through the jungle and you come across a Sindhi or a cobra, kill the Sindhi. Okay. Now the Sindhis, just to diverge for a minute, they are multilingual. They were the ones who would go through the Cologne Free Trade Zone to different business. I mean, imagine any product you want that can be sold, made, transported. These merchants are selling it, and so there are some that sell a lot of counterfeit goods. So they go in and say, "Hey, you'd like a counterfeit coffee maker? Do you want Black & Decker? Do you want Sunbeam?" And people will literally say the Sindhis are taking the orders. They've got actually product books you can flip through. What quality do you want? Do you want it so that it's virtually indistinguishable from the real thing? Or do you want it as cheap as possible so you can sell a lot and it doesn't necessarily have a long lifespan? So they played a critical role in that. Anyway, coming back to the Muslim families, it's more so the Muslim families as opposed to the Jewish families. The Jewish families stay contained largely within Cologne and work outside of there. But the Muslim families, extended family networks, they're in Isla Margarita, they're in Maicao, Colombia, they're in Ciudad del Este, the tri-border area where Argentina, Paraguay, and Brazil come together, and they're over in Iquique, Chile.
That's an interesting location, that tri-border location.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, because I mean, it's it's a large free trade zone, and most free trade zones like Cologne, I mean, they're on a major waterway. They sit at the north end of the Panama Canal, got access to the Caribbean. Here's Ciudad del Este, which is at the top of the waterfall of Iguazu. They're near where the falls of Iguazu are. There's no water access to the sea. It all comes via a major cargo airport that's located across the border in Brazil, where flies in, unloads all this cargo. And there's lots of contraband, there's lots of counterfeit material, but it's a big deal. And anyway, you find these families like the Abdul Waqed family. The Waqeds own a major duty-free business, and they've got. In fact, they got busted by DEA on a money laundering charge, and the son, the guy I knew, Nidal, he spent some time in in jail up here, but he got out, got released, and he's back in business now down in Panama. And but the Walkheads, the Omais, the Sakers, these family networks, they run throughout, and they're not these are not ideological terrorists, even though the United States now is trying to portray Hezbollah and Iran and Hamas are there. These guys are guys and gals, but they're primarily men. They're businessmen. This is about making money.
Oh, yeah.
So I give that as background. Now you come to Venezuela. What the hell's the plan? I mean, what's the United States going to do? What we're going to bomb them till what? Until Maduro says, "Okay, I surrender." Okay, he surrenders. Then what? You install this Nobel Prize winner in a position. Great. And how do you control the country? Because as Chris knows, this is Vietnam on steroids. It's three times the size of Vietnam.
Oh, yeah.
Got the triple canopy jungle. It's got the mountains. In fact, I think it's got much higher mountains than anything that is in Vietnam. And these borders with Brazil and with Colombia are, I mean, just think about it. If the United States tries to impose a blockade on Venezuela, okay, we're not going to let anything else come into your ports. There are lots of enterprising entrepreneurs down there who are going to go, great, we're going to go cross-border to Colombia, we're going to go cross-border to Brazil, and we're going to be smuggling that shit in.
Oh, yeah?
And the United States won't be able to stop it. It's one of the reasons that in Colombia, for 50 plus years, you've had the FARC guerrillas fighting the government, and the government hasn't been able to root them out, in part because they go cross-border into, they got Ecuador and Venezuela on their side. So the point is, you can't control it from the air. Dropping bombs ain't going to do it. And when you're talking about a land that's 3 times the size of Vietnam, let's just simply remember, at the height of U.S. involvement in Vietnam in April 1969, we had 543,000 soldiers in Vietnam. The current total size of the U.S. Army right now is only 470,000.
Yeah.
And yet, how did we do in Vietnam? How did that turn out? Oh, not very well. We lost. We got driven out. And so now we think we can go into Colombia. Chris knows what the road is like from the airport that's out on the coast.
Yeah.
Then you got to drive up this interesting road to get into Caracas.
You got to go up and then you come down.
Now, are there any ambush points along that road? Do you think?
The whole thing is IED prone. Nothing's going to make it.
Yeah. So again, this is where I don't think there's been much decent planning on this from a military standpoint, because they've mobilized 18,000 troops. Big deal. We mobilized 135,000 to go into Iraq. Again, Venezuela is twice the size of Iraq, I believe. Yeah. And it is, and you don't have a lot of jungle in Iraq. In fact, remember that it was a deadly road to go from Baghdad out to the airport. People kept getting blown up.
Oh, yeah.
Well, now you got jungle to hide yourself. I was talking to Danny Davis earlier today, and he was describing when he was in Afghanistan on this one combat patrol, and he said the commander leading the patrol, Danny asked him, said, "So how much control of this area do we have?" And the guy goes, "Well, we got 100 yards in front of us and 100 yards behind us, and 100 yards while we're here on either side. But once we leave, the Taliban take it back over."
Yeah, that's it.
And I asked Danny, I said, "How was that triple canopy jungle in Afghanistan?" He goes, "There wasn't any. You could see for miles in either direction."
Yeah.
So now take the Afghan situation, put it in Venezuela with triple canopy jungle on either side of you. Good luck.
Yeah.
So this is what I think Trump team is trying to do is to provoke Maduro into taking action, to attacking an American target so the United States can justify going in. I was the regional analyst for Central America at the CIA in the Central American branch back in 1988. My last year, I left the CIA the following year. At that time, one of my branch mates, a woman named Alicia, she was the Panamanian analyst. And she was then, at that time, it was unusual, but she was allowed regular contact with the guys on the operations side over in the Central American Task Force. And what were they doing? They were planning a whole series of provocations to try to get Noriega to react, to retaliate, in order to, so we could then justify invading. I think Noriega ultimately took the bait. It was like end of November of 1988, and we invaded Panama.
Yeah.
Now, the advantage we had in invading Panama at that time is you can drive from the Pacific side of Panama to the Atlantic side along the canal. You can drive that in an hour and a half if there's no traffic. Easy. And so it's not very big. And at the southern end of the canal, where Panama City is, we had Southcom headquarters at Quarry Heights. It was a mountain. It was this headquarters built into a small mountain. And then at the north end, we had another U.S. military base. So we already had military personnel there. It's not like we had to fly in thousands. But even then, it took us days to try to capture Noriega. I mean, we had a very, very confined, small area and a lot of advantages. We don't have that in Venezuela. So it's just, but I think the Trump administration is trying to follow the Panama plan if they can.
I have a clip of Maduro really quickly before I ask my next question.
Hay quienes quieren entregarle
Those that
este
want
país
to
a los demonios.
to the
Ustedes saben
devils.
quién, ¿verdad?
You know who?
La ultraderecha sayonista le quiere entregar este país a los demonios.
Want to give this
¿Quién va a
country to
poder
the
más?
devils.
El pueblo
Who
de
is
David,
stronger?
el pueblo de
The
Dios,
people of
el pueblo de
David,
Bolívar
God,
o los
people
demonios
of
imperialistas.
Bolivar.
Yeah.
So we're talking a lot about this like Pax Judaica. I've been joking around and saying our Monroe Doctrine is turning into the Moses Doctrine.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's why I asked about Mossad ops. We know that Trump, he was openly interfering with the Honduras election. He endorses Tito Asfuera, which is really interesting because you just said, you know, there's a lot of these Lebanese or Levantine Muslim families.
Yeah.
We have Bukele, who's from a Lebanese Muslim family. They converted to Christianity, I believe. He's a born-again Christian. Tito Asfuera also comes from a Palestinian background, but he's a staunch Zionist. So it's very interesting that we have this all kind of going on down there. And then you have the Isaac Accords. Could you shed some light on this sort of like this? We're kind of militarily mobilizing to be the sword wielder of Israel again? Yeah,
this Israel first policy is just, well, it's blowing up here in the United States. That's the good news. The Zionists are increasingly desperate to try to cling on to their command and control of Congress and the media, and they're failing. And they're only their attack on Tucker Carlson, who's now anti-Semite of the year. Hey, congratulations, Tucker. You know, if they think that's a smart strategy, demonizing Tucker, because Tucker's got the right personality. He's not angry about it. He laughs at it, how ridiculous it is, and he's got a voice that a lot of people are listening to. But you know, this re-attention to Central and South America. Now, remember when I was the Honduran analyst, I started off as the Honduran analyst in September of 1986 after completing a year of training. It was one of the top 5 foreign policy priorities for the then Reagan administration. The others were, let's see, of course, Israel, Angola, Afghanistan, and I forget what the fifth was, but those were the four. So that meant if you had one of those accounts, the odds of you getting published every day in the Presidential Daily Brief was pretty high. And I was writing on average at least 2 articles a week for the Presidential Daily Brief, which is uncommon because most analysts would be lucky if they'd actually write 1 article for the Presidential Daily Brief in 2 months. In fact, one of my before becoming the hunter and analyst, they had me work an internship in the operations center. And the first day I showed up, they go, "We don't have anything for you to do. Just go across the hall and you can help edit the National Intelligence Daily and the Presidential Daily Brief." And lo and behold, there I was, having never worked a day as an analyst. I'm editing these pieces, and there was one analyst who'd been there for like 4 years. This was the first time he'd got published in Current Intelligence. So just putting that in context. Now, we went from once the wars, about 1989, the wars in Central America died off. In Guatemala, in Salvador, Sandinistas basically prevailed. In Nicaragua, the Contras are out of business. We forgot where Latin America was. Now, the only ones we really focused on going into the early 90s was Colombia. Project Colombia.
And Colombia, yeah.
Because you had the Pablo Escobar and then the Cali cartel. The narcotics issue was a big deal. And my boss, the Ambassador Morris Busby at State, leading the counterterrorism shop, he moved from there to become ambassador in Colombia when the hunt for Pablo Escobar was on. And if you've ever seen the Netflix series Narcos, well,
Yeah.
in Netflix, they have Ambassador Crosby. That's Busby. Yeah. And actually, they cast an actor that looked a little bit like Buzz. But see, Buzz came out of an actual military. He'd been a Navy commander, and he was part of a group called ISA that was, they called themselves, at the time, Intelligence Support Activity. It's gone through a lot of, but it's a top secret unit that was based outside of Washington, D.C. And that was Buzz's background. He'd been a spook, but now he was an ambassador. We shifted the focus then. The focus primarily became Colombia and Mexico to combat drug trafficking, because that's where all the drug trafficking was taking place. Now, Venezuela was used as a transit point because, again, you get a lot of entrepreneurs, guys who want to make a quick buck, but they were not producing the drugs. They were not running the cartels. And the first, I started looking into it this year when we started hearing about this Tren de Aragua. And I'm going, where did they come from? And so I found in 2018 was the first mention of them in the press in South America. I think it was in a Peruvian newspaper. Well, right away, that told me this was a CIA op.
Mm-hmm. Peru, yeah.
Yeah, because they were planting a story about a group that may or may not have existed, and a group that the CIA was helping bring to life as part of creating this narrative. Because I believe I don't have any inside information on this, but I'm just looking at it, knowing what I know from my previous experience, that I believe in 2018, Donald Trump signed a finding to get rid of Maduro and to take control of Venezuela. And Juan Guaido was part of that project, creating Tren de Aragua to create a pretext to support a narrative about what a bunch of bad guys they were. And Trump left office without seeing the fruition of that project. Well, I don't think that project ever went away. And it's one of the things, as long as there's still funding for it, it plugs along, keeps chugging along.
That makes sense, because the ADL started going after Venezuela in 2012 or 14, one or the other.
Yeah.
And shortly after 2018, we overthrew the government of Peru.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
So this convergence, and the other thing I forgot to mention. So in Panama, again, a smuggling hub. I knew we did a RICO case against the tobacco companies. First one was Philip Morris. Well, one of the smugglers for Philip Morris cigarettes was a guy named Marco Shrem, little Jewish guy. He also got jammed up working with Mossad, smuggling automatic weapons out of Guatemala into Colombia to the Autodefensas, the AUC. So there was definite involvement. I know firsthand or secondhand through knowing Marco, a strange little guy. But I mean, he actually contacted me last year. Hey, I need to get a visa. They've taken my visa away. I go, yeah, because you're an arms smuggler. I mean, come on, dude, wake up. But so the Mossad was working through groups, Guatemalan military, and then moving the weapons down through Panama into Colombia. So yeah, they've had a long history there, and they've Iran has influence, Israel has influence. It's another playground for all of these characters.
For sure.
Well, speaking of playgrounds, I also want to get your insight on just a little bit of the weird domestic stuff that's going on. You're old enough to remember the JDL?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So have you been hearing this sort of, they're trying to do the JDL again is what's happening. And now we have Mossad and the FBI are investigating Bondi Beach. And now we have the Brown shooting and all of this kind of, I don't even know how to formulate a question about it, but I want your thoughts.
Yeah, our government has been completely compromised by the Zionists, and we saw that with the weird case of the murder of Charlie Kirk. Now, why was the FBI there? Because FBI has no jurisdiction. It'd be one thing if the suspected killer of Charlie Kirk had come from a neighboring state, had crossed state boundaries. Then the FBI would have jurisdiction. This was a Utah resident killing somebody who was in Utah. And yet the stories that are coming out is within an hour of Charlie dying, there were FBI agents at the hospital. The surgeon came out to do something and was getting ready to go back in, and the FBI tried to prevent him from going in to clean up the body. He was going to clean him up so they could show it to his wife. And, it turned into a thing where this doctor turned out to be politically connected, called someone in Washington, and the FBI stood aside. But why? And then when Tulsi Gabbard, Joe Kent, who's head of the counterterrorism, National Counterterrorism Center, tried to say, okay, well, we're going to investigate if there's any possibility of foreign involvement. Kash Patel shut that down quick. That tells me there was Israeli involvement. That's how I look at it, because Kash Patel is nothing more than a shill for Israel, as has Dan Bongino. There's a video out of Bongino where they're saying, hey, Dan, this was before he went in as FBI deputy director. What's the cause closest to your heart? You'd think you'd say, well, America, of course. Nope. Israel. Really? Israel? That's your answer? Yeah. So when you have two guys like Patel and Bongino compromised so heavily by Israel, and then making it a crime to criticize Israel under the guise of anti-Semitic, which I've written about, pointing out that actually the Palestinians are more Semitic than all of these Ashkenazi Jews that come out of Europe. So if we're going to be genuine about anti-Semitism, we can accuse Israel of being the greatest anti-Semites in the world by virtue of their attacks on the Palestinian people. But they're trying to shut down that kind of talk in this country and create this safe haven where even Jews who, like Max Blumenthal, Aaron Mate, Jeffrey Sachs, try to speak up against Norm Finkelstein, try to speak up against the genocide being carried out, they get accused of being anti-Semitic. So it's just, it's the same sort of absurd thing that we see in the whole transgender world, where your attempt to point out truth is attacked with a lie, and then the lie becomes the truth.
Yeah. I got to ask you very quickly, Jeffrey Epstein.
Yes, thank you so much, Chris.
Uh, and and I don't know if you know, I discovered the second book. I submitted myself to the Congress. I'm waiting for it to come out now. But I got to ask you, what do you think about, number one, what we've seen so far? Number two, what's still out there? And number three, what's the deeper meaning in all of this?
Well, what they're trying to cover up and protect is that Epstein did work for both the CIA and Mossad,
Mhm.
and the work primarily for Mossad, I believe, was to create compromising material on very successful businessmen and politicians in order to have additional influence if needed. But Israel always likes to say that the United States has the best Congress that money can buy. So they've been able to purchase quite a bit of influence. It's those characters like Thomas Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Rand Paul that create a problem because they won't take money, just like Matt Gaetz wouldn't take their money. But the rest are more than happy to be bought. So yeah, this is and what they're also discovering is Trump's name is all over these documents.
Oh yeah,
all far greater, and now he was doing this when he was not married, is my understanding. So can't accuse him of running around on his wife. But the real question is, was he dealing with underage women? And that's that was what was so shocking. How before Trump became president, they were saying, "Oh yeah, we got to have transparency on this." But once he got in, he shut it down. And I don't think it's any coincidence that Jeffrey Epstein was killed while Donald Trump was president.
Yeah,
I said the same.
Yeah. I just don't believe in coincidence.
One more question from the audience. Larry, thank you again. Is the U.S. betting it all on black? We know military supplies are at critical levels. If they fail at removing Maduro, what would stop China from invading Taiwan or Venezuela from invading Guyana?
Well, number one, these are all projection fantasies by the West. We project onto China, they're going to go invade Taiwan. Well, number one, the U.S. agreed 52 years ago that Taiwan is part of China.
Correct.
So China doesn't need to invade its own self, number one. Number two, Venezuela is not going to invade Guyana. That's, again, another one of these U.S. efforts to bait, trap Venezuela. And I think Maduro has been smart enough to listen to some advice he's been getting from the Russians, from the Chinese, even from the Iranians. Don't play their game.
Yeah.
The thing about China is we've got quite a bit of history with China. And then throughout their entire history, they've never been known as an imperial power going about invading other nations, even neighbors, to conquer them and impose Chinese culture, Chinese values, Chinese language. The last time they ventured militarily outside of the borders of China was 1979, when they went after Vietnam, because Vietnam was attacking Cambodia and Cambodia was aligned with China, and the Chinese got their ass kicked. So, I'll say the Chinese are lovers. They're not fighters, but they've got a pretty formidable army and navy on paper. But the United States is being exposed as we'll put this in erectile dysfunction territory, impotent. Remember how well they succeeded in the Red Sea. Those Houthis, by God, we're going to go back. If we could pull Hegseth's speech that he gave at the outset, where they took control of what had been Operation Prosperity Guardian. We're going to teach those Houthis. We're not wimps like the Biden administration. We're tough guys. We're not afraid to use military force. Just watch us. And watch we did for 7 weeks. And in that 7-week period, they went from where the Houthis during the Biden tenure shot down one Predator drone, 35 million apiece, once a month. But under Trump, they upped their game. They were shooting down one a week. And so in a period of 7 weeks, the Houthis did more damage to the U.S. Predator force than had been accomplished in the previous 14 months. That's number one. And then we lost 3 combat aircraft. The ships were damaged through missile strikes. And so Trump's maneuver, we're declaring victory. Let's go. We're going. Yeah, they surrendered. They capitulated. That was the word he used. They capitulated. The Houthis capitulated. There's. I just saw a meme yesterday. With it's got a guy in his 20s, but he's made up to look like Donald Trump as a fat kid in his 20s, and he's a loser at everything he does. And he's out trying to play basketball. He shoots and completely misses the backboard, the hoop, falls aside. So he goes to his locker room and he's upset. He hits the locker, said, "I'm just a loser." And out pops this box. And it says, it's got some Trump brand advertising on it. Opens it up, golden glow. It's the golden Trump sneakers. It says, "Put this on and you'll never be a loser again." So he puts them on and he goes out to the basketball court. He shoots again, completely misses the basket and the backboard. But then the guy said, "You missed." And this kid goes, "No, I didn't. It went in. You just didn't see it. It went in." And he said, the punchline of all this was, "Look, the Trump shoes may not make me a very good basketball player, but by God, I can sell bullshit like nobody else."
I don't even know if he can sell bullshit anymore. We're
Well, he's trying, and that's what they're trying to do with Venezuela, and that that's what they're trying to do with the peace plan in Ukraine. And remember his vow in February. The countries of the world are lining up, and I'm quoting him, "to kiss my ass over tariffs." I don't think there's been a lot of ass kissing going on, at least not.
Where are they?
Yeah. So
final before we let you go, Iran
Yeah.
war.
Oh, yeah, Bibi's coming. Yeah, Bibi
Yeah.
coming on the
War-
29th.
Yeah,
in your
he's gonna-
estimation, and as an Iranian, right?
yeah,
War coming or not?
probably. But
Okay.
the difference is Iran learned its lesson. Prior to June 13th, both the Chinese and the Russians had offered Iran a chance for military cooperation and wanted to extend it because they saw what was coming. And Iran said, no. It's like, "Mother, please, I'd rather do it myself," kind of thing.
Yeah.
After the 25th, Iran immediately reached out to Russia and China, and there have been military exchanges. The number of Iranian officials racking up frequent flyer miles going to Moscow and China is significant. They've had conversations at the foreign minister level. Araghchi's been in Moscow at least 2 or 3 times. And so the cooperation is much more extensive. And then when they got to the so-called snapback sanctions, my idea of snapback is you first have to lift sanctions and then put the sanctions back in place. But what they're calling snapback are the fact that the Europeans never lifted the sanctions on Iran. They kept them in place. Now they're saying, "Yeah, we're gonna keep doing this." The difference is in 2015, both China and Russia agreed to go along with the West. "Yeah, we'll sanction Iran. We'll teach them." Not now. Both Russia and China came out and said, "Hey, Europeans, you're a bunch of losers. We're not gonna support this at all." And they're now doing business with Iran, which is actually Iran is in a much better situation economically than it was 5 years ago, simply because of now this changed situation with the developed part of BRICS and closer military, diplomatic, political cooperation with Russia and China.
Wow.
Very good.
Thank you. This whole episode was just like clips galore. It's just gold. Thank you so much, Larry. And thank you for spending some time with us on Christmas, especially.
I am honored by the invitation. It's always a privilege.
There will
to
be
with you
many,
guys.
many more. Yes.
So I will look forward to seeing you in the new year.
Yes.
Looking forward to wishing you a happy Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Yeah,
And hopefully in Moscow. We're waiting for you.
Thank you. And by the way, Sarah, I sent you in your Telegram account.
I saw it. I didn't want to show it during the show and dox you, but I'll show Chris after.
Yeah, that's
Larry's decorated house.
I told her I went for the Clark Griswold Award. I figure I haven't done my job in Christmas decoration unless they have to fire up a nuclear power plant to send more electricity my way.
Well, Russ Adam is ready for you, so come on over.
There we go. All right, guys, take care.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye-bye.
All right, our super chats from South Africa. We wish you and your loved ones a safe and joyous festive season. I can't wait until Orthodox Christmas because that's when I get to share the Ethiopian videos. They're the best Christmas videos.
yeah.
Merry Christmas to you, even though you're Muslim. I don't know what A2 Michigan is. What is that?
I don't know either, but hello from A2
We love Michigan. We do love Michigan. Oh, we talked about that. Larry, yeah, everybody loves Larry. We got to get Ray McGovern back on. He's also my favorite. I love Larry and Ray.
Great.
Feliz Navidad to you and yours. I didn't know that was his name. His name's Kashish. I really thought it was Cash App. Cash Patel.
I don't know. I use kashish for a combination of cash
and hash.
And bakshish. So I combine it with kashish. Yeah, because people don't. If you're not from our part of the world, people don't know bakshish. So I'm like, we're gonna do some kashish. So.
One more. I lost it. Oh, what do they have on Ratcliffe? I don't know. I will look into that. Just so you guys know, they did discover today. So, I mean, of course, it's over Christmas, but just so you guys know, they did discover today that inside of this tranche of documents, they found an email or a note that says from a lawyer that says there's millions of documents. So this isn't even the glistening ice at the very tip of the iceberg. Like there's so much. People think there could be tens of millions of files.
I'm ready. Bring them on.
They literally asked for volunteers to come in over Christmas to help redact things. This is such a circus.
And the fact that you can tell that they're using either like a PDF operating some sort of software or Word, and just kind of like highlighting it and then just coloring black, but actually not like redacting it. It's just covering it black, so that when you take the document, you can just highlight it and copy paste it. There it is.
Yeah, that's why they needed volunteers to come in and redact them.
Here we are.
Anyway, we're going to be talking a little bit about culture of critique after the show tonight, somewhere on a space. But other than that, we will see you on Sunday in our pre-New Year's. Now, Chris is probably going to be rowdy. New Year's is wild in Russia. So
it's crazy. Here we are.
Right.
We already had a party tonight.
We will see you guys on Sunday. Also, we started a book club. It's called, what is it called again? Oh, the Omitted Curriculum. If you guys want to join, find us on Twitter. First book is The Shock Doctrine. We'll read it. We will meet the first Saturday after the new year. So that's that. And go to ddgeopolitics.com and buy things. All right, guys, we will see you on Wednesday. We hope you have a really, really, really Merry Christmas. And when you come back on Sunday, you tell us all the wonderful gifts that you guys got. Merry Christmas again.
Merry Christmas. Take care.